And now I'd like to welcome Lisa Whittlesey. Lisa, if you want to go ahead and get your screen up. Lisa is an extension program specialist with the horticulture department, and she oversees a program called Learn, Grow, Eat, and Go. Brenda mentioned it briefly about for school-age children, and this involves encouraging community gardening or school gardening, I guess, and activity among kids at school. And if Lisa's desktop and all the things on it doesn't incite hypertension, I don't know what does. So
I'm sorry.
I'm glad that Danielle has already kind of told me how to control it because, man alive, Lisa. But
Okay, thank you for
we're glad
calling me
you're
out.
here. We're glad you're here, and we look forward to what you have to say. And don't forget to hit that display settings and change to whatever the other mode is so that we see it better on our ends.
All right, hang on a second. Perfect. Okay, well, thank you guys. Nothing like being the last one, so I'll try to make it as exciting and zippy as possible. We're excited that you are interested in helping support us as Extension to be able to deliver quality programs in the community. We just couldn't do it without you, as Renda had mentioned. I work in the horticulture department at A&M. We have a number of curriculum that focuses on connecting children with gardening and the environment. Probably our biggest curriculum focus is the Learn, Grow, Eat, Go curricula. This particular curricula really focuses on integrating learning, gardening, nutrition, as well as physical activity. It actually started as a research project, and I know you've heard from several different groups today, and I hope that you see that really a lot of the programs that we do that we're promoting for you all to help us with in the community are evidence-based research projects. And so there's really a method for improving behavioral outcomes when we implement the programs as they're designed. So this was actually a large research study we did with the Texas A&M University and the University of Texas School of Public Health, where we followed children actually for 2 years that participated in the program, not only the children but their parents. And we did parent analysis of data between the children and their parents to learn some things not only about the kids and impact that the program has on BMI, but we were looking at some of those behavioral outcomes in the home that we are hoping to change for our kids and families to be more healthy. So these were a few of the evidence-based outcomes that we saw as part of that very big research project. One was significant increases in moderate to vigorous physical activity, which is a great thing, and overall total physical activity. We saw increases in vegetable consumption and preferences, and I will have to say that, you know, we introduce kids to maybe some vegetables they're not familiar with, things like bok choy, things like Swiss chard, and they find out they like them, they find out how to prepare and use them. We had kids that were choosing healthier beverage preferences, so choosing water over sugar-sweetened beverages or soft drinks. And then kids having more confidence and efficacy and knowledge about not only gardening, but what do you do with it after you grow that broccoli or after you grow that cabbage, so knowing what to do with it. And then we saw increases of parents and children cooking together, doing more physical activity together. And those of you that may be gardeners yourself, gardening can be really a great physical activity that you can do for a lifetime and a way to really increase quality time together with children and families, but also improve the physical activity, because weeding and doing some of that can be a lot of hard work. So we saw a lot of reach into the home. We did see a reduction of BMI for the children that were in the research study. I will mention CATCH is listed on there. CATCH is Coordinated Approach to Child Health. That is not an extension program, but most schools are required to have a school health program, and CATCH is one of the larger ones. And so the schools we worked with, we trained them in CATCH, and then we applied one of our extension programs on top of that. So that's just in case you were curious as to what that was. So I wanted to take you through a little bit of just what that curricula is about, so you'll be familiar with it. as you go through. The Learn section is really tying the curricula to academic instruction. My degrees are in horticulture, but I did my student teaching for high school horticulture. Everyone else in my staff has no background in horticulture. Their background is in education. So both elementary and secondary education. We even have a former principal on our staff. So we were really concerned to make sure that it aligned to academic standards. It's a 10-week curricula, and some of the components that you'll see listed, we have journals that are a part of it. We have math connections through our garden kitchen recipe. We have literature connections with children's literature books that are featured as part of the curricula. A lot of family engagement, so trying to really increase that reach into the home. Family stories, opportunity for children to do service learning projects, to share their gardening experiences, and opportunities to get JMG certification, which a lot of groups really love that. I will say that we do have our printed materials in both English and Spanish. So all materials that go into the home, the recipes, the kids' journals, all of the materials, the parent letters are both in English and Spanish. We also have the full curricula printed in English and Spanish as well. So that's a great resource, particularly if you're working in schools or communities with a high ESL population. So I wanted you to kind of be familiar with some of the lessons and kind of how long they take. You can see the 10 weeks listed here, and there's 2 lessons per week, and it lists the time amount. We allow schools a little bit of flexibility or after school programs. You know, you don't have to do it on Monday and Tuesday or on Tuesday and Friday. We give them some flexibility, and there are some groups that have spread that first week out over 10 days if it works better for them. What we do ask is they do it sequentially, because a lot of the lessons build on one another. And so you can see that the time frame is there. And if you'll look where the purple arrows are, that's really the ideal time within the curricula to be able to start your school garden. And so everything before that really introduces on how a garden grows. And then once we get to that point, they're learning more about what do you do with the garden and how do you plant your vegetables, and then more on the nutrition side. So we have some featured vegetables that are a part of the curricula. You can see carrots is the first one that's kind of bulleted in as an example. We worked with the nutrition faculty to identify those vegetables that are really nutrient dense, but also lots of fun for kids to be able to grow. And I will say that was kind of fun working with them from a horticultural perspective. They were not really excited about potatoes, but being a plant person, we knew that children would love the potatoes. And the fact of the matter is potatoes are easy and fun to grow, but it's what we do to them that makes them unhealthy. And so we've kind of took that on as a challenge, is how can we provide some recipes and opportunities for potatoes to be healthy and not just potato chips. So you'll see those listing of vegetables in the bottom. There are several exposures for vegetables that are built into the curricula, and one is the fresh tasting of that particular vegetable. And you can see there where you can put that in, and it's just the simple tasting of it, not in a recipe. And then we have some garden kitchen recipes that are included, where kids get to learn to prepare it in a recipe that's been vetted, and a great opportunity for kids to have multiple exposures. The research really shows that for kids to be willing to taste or try a new vegetable, they have to be exposed multiple times. So they're growing it in the garden, they're tasting it fresh, they're trying it in a recipe. And many of our schools that have used this program also have worked with their nutrition services staff so that they can maybe offer those in the cafeteria during the time that they are doing the curricula. So just a fun way to kind of integrate with some other programs and other groups. We have Go Strong activities, which are just kind of some featured physical activities that groups could do. And we do encourage our schools doing Learn, Grow, Eat, Go, or our youth programs that are doing it to also encourage them to enroll in the Walk Across Texas program as well. So I wanted you to see a little bit of the garden journal. This is week 1. There were 2 lessons the children learned about that week, and every week the kids have a garden journal page that really highlights some of the things they learned in that particular week as a part of the curricula. One thing you will notice is at the bottom there's a little tasting. That is where they do their fresh tasting, is during journal time. And you may say, why do we do it during journal time? Well, it kind of eliminates the ooh factor. Have you ever been with a group of kids and one kid tries something and they go, ooh, I don't like it, and then it can permeate the room. And so usually journal time was a quiet time. The kids are evaluating not on just how it looks, but how it smells and how it feels on their tongue and how it sounds and its taste. So notice that taste is just one of the 5 ways they're evaluating that vegetable. And so it kind of gets them to think about vegetables not just based on taste, so they're not all bad. We were doing it with a group of kids one day, and they were journaling, and they were trying broccoli, and there was a young boy in the class, and it was really quiet, and I said, how's it going? He goes, it's fine. And he tried a taste. And I said, how's it going? He goes, well, it's good, but I think I'm going to give it another chance. And so he took another bite of the broccoli. Well, you couldn't ask for much better than that. So that willingness to try is what we're hoping for. One thing you'll see as a part of the curricula is there's a garden planting chart. So here's an example for carrots. You'll notice that the first column, it lists the vegetable, and the second column is blank. That's because our range of planting dates really varies across the state of Texas. And this is where, if you happen to be in a county that has an adult master gardener program or near one, we have about 120 counties that have active programs. Many of them have local planting dates and charts for your region or your county, which can be really helpful to make sure you're putting those seeds or putting those transplants in the ground when they're going to grow the best. I wanted to highlight just a couple of lessons. We can't really go through all of them. This is one called Home Sweet Home, and it helps kids to be a part of designing where that garden may be. And it features a literature book called A Place to Grow. And so the teacher or you as a master wellness volunteer might be reading the book to the children. And then the children will think about the story and what did that seed have to go through to find the perfect place to be able to grow. And the kids use that to kind of help evaluate sites to choose a site to grow. We also start introducing some of the nutritional guidelines. We introduced My Plate and really have kids thinking about we want half of their plate to come from fruits and vegetables. So having them be able to identify the components of the food plate, being able to think about the things that they've eaten and how it fits into My Plate, and to have an understanding of that. We want children to kind of connect the school to their garden, and so once the gardens are in place, we encourage those campuses to use the garden as a education site for others that may be walking through the space, or maybe other grade levels that are not doing Learn, Grow, Eat, Go. And we encourage them, number one, to label the plants, but number two, to label what is that vegetable really high in as far as nutritional value. So this one really high in vitamin A. And what does it do for you? Well, it can help with night vision. And so having the kids learn about some of those particular fruits and vegetables that they might be growing, and then not only learn the nutrients, but what it does for their bodies. Here's another one of the literature features. It's called The Ugly Vegetables. We have about 5 that are featured as part of this curricula, and I will let you know that a lot of them are Caldecott winning books. Many of them are books that are already really accessible at your school libraries. If you get on YouTube, you often can also even find read alouds where you can access the books that way. We do work with our AgriLife bookstore, who has worked with all the publishers of these books, and we have those in as a set that you can get through the AgriLife bookstore. So just know that that's an option if you find, you know, your school library or your community library doesn't have one of the titles. So this particular book is about an Asian American family. They're growing some vegetables that are kind of unusual vegetables, and the daughter is kind of embarrassed because everyone else has these beautiful flowers and things. And at the end of the book, the mother is making this wonderful dish with all the vegetables, and everyone in the community can smell it, and then they all come and take part in the meal together. And then at the end of the story, the mother and daughter share some of their vegetables and seeds with the other families, and they share some of their vegetables and seeds and flowers with them. And so it really kind of introduces the idea of community gardens, and also the importance really that vegetables can play with different ethnicities and ethnic groups as part of their culture. One lesson that we do as a part of this particular an activity that goes with this lesson is called the paper chain. And so we're really encouraging kids to try different vegetables, and not do you like it, but were you willing to try it? So you could assign each child a certain color, or you could just have strips of paper, and when they go to the cafeteria or when you have taste testings in the classroom and they're willing to taste or try a vegetable or a recipe they haven't tried before, they put their name on it and they connect it, and maybe the goal is to get the chain all the way around the classroom. But it's really a way to reward, I tried it. We even have groups that have made stickers for the children that said, I tried it. So kind of a fun way to encourage that for the children. Here are those vegetables that we talked about, and you can see some of the little signage the kids have done for their garden. We really have a lot of concentration on some of those deep leafy green vegetables, which are very nutrient dense and tend to be ones that we don't get in the diet as often. And we also were looking at things that were easy to grow, things that could grow both in fall and in spring. And you'll notice, like for tomatoes, we put cherry tomatoes because some of the schools, if they put tomatoes in and they're the large slicing tomatoes, they're not ready until the school is out. So trying to think of things that the schools and groups can grow within the time that we have the children there is pretty important. One of the barriers we found is people sometimes are real intimidated by gardening. And so we tell them you can grow in containers, but you also can do a really simple, easy raised bed. And so this is an example of a 3-foot by 7-foot raised bed. And so if you count the squares, you can see it's basically square foot gardening for each of those sections. One of our particular lessons is called paper towel gardening, and they use that to create seed planting templates, and that kind of shows how they might lay them out for that particular garden. I will tell you that on our website, we have a video that actually shows building a raised bed. We also have the printout that's a PDF of this quick and easy garden kit. We found a lot of our volunteers like to send that home because some of the families have decided they wanted to do raised beds, or they may start with a container garden to have at home. So again, a simple idea of what you could do. I mentioned the food exposures. I want to delve a little bit more into that. The first food exposure is that fresh taste. So example, we put carrots on the list first because those little baby peel carrots are pretty easy to get and an easy one to start with. That second exposure is a demonstration of a recipe. So this is a bok choy salad, bok choy noodle crisp, I think is what it's called. But you can see for this particular county, and if I remember, this was in Huntsville, Texas, they actually utilize Master Gardener volunteers to do individual portions so that every child, you can see her mixing her amount to make her own individual salad. You could do it that way. We also have a number of groups where they may do the recipe demonstration in front of the classroom of children, and they may call on children throughout the room to come up and help stir or measure or mix as they're doing that particular recipe. We mentioned earlier about those 5 senses, and so that very first time that they do a tasting of a fresh vegetable, it goes with a lesson called the 5 senses food, where they learn about that we don't just enjoy food by what it tastes, but also visually and how it smells, and texture, particularly with children, can be a pretty big factor. Here are some samples of the recipes, and I just wanted you to see we have those in English and in Spanish. English on one side, Spanish on the other. And I'm going to ask Andy. I don't have it up where I can see the chat, so you just like hop in there. If we have any chats that are questions that I need to answer, Andy, let me know. One thing at the as a part of each recipe, we have the garden kitchen math, and that's a really important part of the lesson. It's a way to kind of pull in some more of our Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, which is our academic standards for the state. You know, and it allows you as a volunteer to kind of have some questions to help support some of the math they're doing in the classroom. So it may be as simple as, you know, this recipe calls for 1 cup of shredded cheese. We don't have a 1 cup measure. We only have a 1/3 cup measure. So boys and girls, how many 1/3s do we need to be able to make 1 cup? So some simple things like that that they can do to kind of help be able to support that. Okay, we visited some about family engagement, and there's a lot of pieces that are a part of this curricula that are really meant to go home. So we have recipes that they're on the website as a PDF. You can download them, print them off. We also have those pre-printed where there's 25 copies of each recipe, 20 English on one side, Spanish on the other, that you can order. And we this is one of the Better Living for Texans program. We have many of our counties that utilize their BLT funds to purchase those already copied for them. So just know there's a lot of things like that available. We have the garden journals as printed journals that you can get with BLT funds or that schools can purchase, or we do have individual pages as PDF that you can download for free from the website. So a lot of resources there. You'll see in the center of your screen, there's a document in the bottom that says week 1. Those are letters to parents, and we have those for every single week. It really lets the parents know what their kids are going to be learning about for that particular week. And you'll see there's a close-up of that, and we have those also both in English and in Spanish. So really a nice way to reinforce academic learning at home, and questions that the parents can ask the kids about what they're learning in their gardening project. So some of you may be thinking, wow, where could I plug in volunteers in this program? So there's a sample of a volunteer schedule that's a part of this curricula. It's both on the website and in the printed curricula. So you can see where you could use volunteers, either helping with particular components of the curricula, helping in the garden, helping with prepping vegetable samples, or helping with recipe demonstrations. So it may be a way, as you're training or working with other volunteers in your county, to think about how you might could plug in some of those folks, maybe even Master Gardener volunteers that could work with your programming, you know, at the county level. What I like about this too is that it's a way for more episodic volunteering. Sometimes people like, hey, I could do this one time, but I don't want to work with this, you know, for 10 weeks. And it's really a way to engage those type of volunteers as well. So just know that that's there and a way to kind of plug in volunteer support for your program. Our website is pretty full of information. jmgkids.us is our main website. You can either click from that main page to Learn, Grow, Eat, Go, or you can simply put in the /LGEG, and it's going to take you directly to the Learn, Grow, Eat, Go section of the website. It's divided just like the curricula. So under the Learn section, you'll see each of the 10 weeks. There's all sorts of resources for each week. Some of them are things that would help a teacher, that would help a volunteer, or an agent that might be working with the program. The Grow section has information on every vegetable. It also shows what it looks like when it's ready to harvest, which we found that was pretty important. How to cut and prepare each vegetable, and then also that video on building the raised beds. So know that that's there. The Eat section has information of doing the fresh sampling. So, hey, I'm going to do a fresh sampling of bok choy. How many leaves of bok choy do I need? Well, it's in there. It also shows you how to wash and prepare them. And then we have videos showing each and every garden kitchen recipe. So you can actually see somebody preparing it and what it's supposed to look like. So you kind of have a feel for it if you're having to lead that recipe demonstration to know how to do it. And then the Go section has some specific physical activities or brain breaks you can do with your kiddos. And also introduction to Walk Across Texas if your group would like to do that. And I'll let you know that on the Walk Across Texas site, they even have some equivalencies for some gardening activities. So you can kind of get credit. Okay, I did so many hours of, you know, or so many minutes of weeding, or so many minutes of putting out mulch, and what that equates to as far as physical activity. So kind of some nice things that are in there. For county extension agents and volunteers who have a primary role, we have a section in there that has a lot of resources to kind of help you. One of them, there's a link that says Cooperative Extension. Our program is international, the Junior Master Gardener program is. So you'll see, you may be like, well, there's not a lot of Texas A&M AgriLife. Well, it's because we work with also with all the other land-grant universities. But no, our program is an AgriLife program, and it is stationed and headquartered here at Texas A&M University. But you'll see in some of our resource kits things that maybe other universities might be able to utilize as well. We have a workshop kit, which is really helpful if you're wanting to train teachers or volunteers that might be working with the program. We have supply kits for the garden, as well as recipes and other information, all sorts of things that are available. There's teacher flyers for programs that you might be doing. So just know that a lot of resources that are there for you. We do have, this is a screenshot from a year or so ago, you can see, but we do have information about our evaluation, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. I know Renda spent some time on that as well. It's pretty important because the numbers get rolled into our statewide report, so we want to be sure that we're capturing you know, what kids are doing as they participate in the program. This is an example on the workshop kit. So if you clicked on that link, we have a PowerPoint presentation. So if you're leading teachers or other volunteers in the program, kind of takes them through it. So that's available to download. If you were doing a workshop for teachers or for volunteers, there's sample agendas for a 2-hour and a 3-hour program, including PDFs of the lessons that are there for you. We even have a webinar that's been recorded on how to assist you in preparing for a training program. The picture at the right is our teacher flyer. It's a PDF that can be printed front and back. It's a really great piece to be able to take to schools or groups that you're wanting to introduce Learn, Grow, Eat, Go to. We found it has worked really well to help kind of concisely share the program, and also for schools. It has a lot of information about the academic alignment to science, math, social studies, and language arts and health, which has helped us to be able to really support schools. So if you're thinking, wow, I need more information, we do actually have online curricula teacher training programs. One thing you may not be aware of is, as AgriLife, we are able to offer State Board of Education credits or CEU credits for educators. So whether we do in-person training or online training like this, at the end, teachers can get their CEU certificates for completion. So it's just a great thing to be able to offer. We do have a link to that from the front page of the website. I want to kind of end my portion of the presentation talking a little bit about the Better Living for Texans program. We have many, many counties that have gotten funding to support their local Learn, Grow, Eat, Go programming through the BLT program. The BLT program kind of has some things that they ask counties to be able to do in order to get funding to support their program. One is they want a commitment from the schools. So a principal letter and a teacher match form, kind of guaranteeing that the teacher is going to be involved. County BLT funds can be then utilized to help support Learn, Grow, Eat, Go. There's also some supplemental funding specifically for Learn, Grow, Eat, Go. And if you have questions related to that, Brenda is definitely the best person to ask with regard to guidelines for funding. Oh, and I noticed some of this has changed. Katie Gottwald is no longer in our org development unit, but we do have information on our website under that Learn, Grow, Eat, Go section specifically about evaluation. And it has a protocol of how to go through and get your pre and post test, and we'll share a little bit about that. So before you implement the program, just know if you're using Better Living for Texas funding to help support, those funds can be used to get curricula and materials. It can cover supplies that are on the supply list, so materials for building the raised beds, for seeds and for transplants, for cooking supplies and tastings, for the recipe demonstrations, all of those kinds of things. Again, we need to show that the teachers are involved with the program and the school is supportive, and being able to capture that match time for the teachers that might be working with the program. We do have pre and post surveys that we do with the program, and we do that through Qualtrics. It's an online evaluation. I will say that we did at one time use paper surveys, and we do still have some, but we highly, 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 all caps and in bold, encourage you to use the online evaluation. And the reason is it's faster, there's less error of children completing them, and it's quicker for counties to be able to get their results. So we know occasionally there are groups that absolutely, because of connectivity, may have issues with online evaluations, but I would say for the most part, we just haven't had an issue, and it's greatly improved our results. So we really encourage you to do the online evaluation. The only problem we've had occasionally is some schools may have a firewall for certain sites. So you as a volunteer that are working with the program, we really encourage you to kind of check that out ahead of time and test that you can get on the site before you have a classroom of kids coming in trying to do the pre-test. It's really quick. One thing I love about the online version, it has a lot of photographs and pictures, and it's kind of drag and drop. It's a little more interactive, and so kind of a nice way for the kids to be able to do it in an unobtrusive way. So I thought you might want to see our 2019 state report. This was based on this past school year. We had 119 counties that did Learn, Grow, Go, and you can see the number of respondents. I will say we're really trying to improve getting the same number of pre and post tests. We had several large groups that did pre-test and didn't have post-test, and that really hurts us. So really encourage you guys to help us in that area to make sure we have that. The great news is we had increases in vegetable preferences for all 12 vegetables. We had healthier beverage selection, increased physical activity, decreased screen time, increased vegetable consumption, and increases on every single question related to family engagement. And so things like, are you eating more family meals together? Are you exercising together? All of those good things that we want children to have with their families we saw. Another thing is kids feel like the gardening makes them a better student and made them want to come to school. So we were pretty excited about that as well, and something that we feel like is really important for schools to see, because a lot of their funding is based on attendance. So if kids are excited to be there, that really can affect the bottom line for those school districts. So we're not surprised by these results, because as an evidence-based research project, if it's implemented the way it was in that research study, you would anticipate you get the same results, which is what we're seeing. So that's kind of a really quick overview. Karen Walton in our office and myself would be available to answer any questions that you guys may have related to use of Junior Master Gardening and Learn, Grow, Eat, Go. Our contact information is there. Anything that we could do to kind of help you guys be more successful is what we feel like our role is. So, Andy, I'm going to see, I don't know if there's any questions because I can't see from my vantage point, but maybe you can let me know.
That's all right, Lisa. I don't see any questions, but we'll give everybody an opportunity to pop some in there if they've got some for you. I appreciate so much you sharing that, Lisa. You know, from Laura talking this morning about youth involvement and child protection standards, and Mike talking about youth versions of Walk Across Texas, and then you and Renda talking about youth versions of our programming. One of the things that the volunteers are going to learn in their first online module is how Extension started out teaching kids best practices so that those kids could then go out and teach their families and their peers those best practices. And so I think a program like Learn, Grow, Eat, Go, where we're learning how to garden, we're learning about vegetables, we're learning about physical activity, is really one of those things that's going to make a difference in the lives of the kids and their families. So one of the things that I learned from a school garden is I like carrot greens as much as I like carrots, and it has a remarkably similar taste, and they're great in my salads. So
nice.
Yeah.
Well, I encourage your group, if there's any of you guys, we are pretty active on social media, so feel free to follow our Facebook and Instagram and Twitter feeds. We usually have a lot of information that we put up there. You'll see a lot now. We have our big national training conference February the 24th through the 26th at A&M and at the A&M Gardens, and so we'll have information about that up there as well. We'd love for you to share that with others. A lot of great things and good speakers as a part of that event.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Lisa. I appreciate it.
Thank you.